Hey, what's up? Welcome back. Patrick here from All Things Mathematics, and moving on to the next example on the test, another thinking question dealing with chain rule. So here we are told if capital F of x is equal to f of g of h of x, right? So it's a composition of three functions here, f, g, and h, where h of 1 is 2, g of 2 is 3, h prime 1 is 4, and then g prime 2 is 5, and f prime 3 is 6. Well, we have to determine capital F prime of 1. So as I mentioned before, I have a bunch of these kinds of thinking questions in the lecture videos, so not just with this one, but make sure you go through those as well, because there's different scenarios, different things we're solving for, different kinds of parameters we are given, and these are very popular kinds of questions. I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to come up on your specific test, but I do see them come up on a lot of students' tests, so make sure that you're pretty comfortable doing these kinds of questions. Now, notice that this capital F here, it's a composition of three functions here. So if we are going to find a general expression for the derivative, we're going to have to do the chain rule on this. But we have three functions, so the h is within the g, and then the g is within the f. So what do? We always start with the outer function, right? So we take the derivative of the outer function, which is this small f, by the way, right? This small f and this capital F, those are different functions. The capital F represents this whole thing, while the small f is just the outer function of g and h, okay? So these are not the same. One is capital, one is small. Okay, so f prime, then we keep this inner function the same, right? Which would be g of h of x, like that, close those brackets, and then we multiply by the derivative of the inner function. So now we go into the inner function here. What's the derivative of g of h of x? That's another composite function, so we're going to have to do the chain rule on that function again. So we're doing the chain rule twice. So we would take the derivative of the outside function, which is g prime, keep the inner function the same, and then multiply it by the derivative of that remaining inner function, which is h prime x, right? So I feel like this here, getting this expression correct, is the most important step, because after, we're just going to have to be plugging stuff in for x and then seeing which parameters we plug in that we're given. Getting this expression correctly is the most important thing, right? And because this was a chain rule with three functions, we start with the outer function first, keep the inner function the same, then take the derivative of that inner function, g of h of x, which we have to do the chain rule again on because it's a composite of two functions, g and h. Take the derivative of the outside, g prime, keep the inner function the same, and then multiply finally by the derivative of that inner function, h of x. So now let's go into finding this capital F prime of 1. So f prime of 1, well, we got to just plug in 1 for all the x's. That's going to be the first step. So that's going to be small f prime g of h of 1, like that, times g prime of h of 1 times h prime of 1, like that. So notice here, we got to plug in something for this h of 1. Notice h of 1 is 2. And we're going to be plugging that in there as well, right? H of 1 is 2. And then notice that h prime 1, where is that given? That's given here as 4. Okay, so our next line here is going to be, actually, let's keep the same color. So it's going to be f prime g of, what's h of 1? 2. Like that. Times g prime of 2 times, what's h prime of 1? 4, like that. So that ends up just being a constant that we're going to multiply at the end. But here we have to keep finding these expressions. So notice that g of 2, that's given as 3. And then g prime of 2, that's given as 5. Right? And so our next line is going to be f prime g of 2 is 3, g prime of 2 is 5, and then we still have this 4 at the end. And then finally this f prime of 3, that's given as 6 right there. All right, so we'd end up basically with 6 times 5 times 4, which would be what, 30 times 4, which is 120. So that would end up being the answer to this question. Okay, so again, another one of those thinking chain rule problems where you got to get the correct expression first, right? That's the most important part. Even in the lecture videos, you'll see I'll write out the general expression for the derivative first, and then it's just plugging in and seeing what parameters you can plug in as you go along with the algebra, the parameters that that you run into, like this g of 2, that should be given, right? So if you run into something and it's not given, then maybe there might be a mistake that you made beforehand, right? So just going down the algebra, plugging everything in, 120 is the final answer. And that's a wrap for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you want to see more videos like this, please go to my website, allthingsmathematics.com. Over there, all of the videos are organized by chapter, by section. If you feel like you need tutoring at any point, you could also hit me up. My contact details are on the website. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.